I've
Hello.
hit the button. Hello. So, hello.
Are we on now?
Yeah, we're live. We're recording. So,
Have you spit that chewing gum out yet?
No.
Do it.
I do that well. While
I'll save it.
We come to you from Glasgow, which is in the centre of the world stage at the moment. It's quite weird.
It is.
Why? What do you mean?
Well, because of the COP26, you know.
What's COP26?
Oh, here he
here
goes.
we
He's
go.
going to be objectionable.
I know, it's
today.
not even started. 10 seconds, 25 seconds we're in. So it's a bit weird. It's a bit kind of crazy in Glasgow. There's lots of famous people doing the do.
Greta's in.
Leo,
Barack Obama.
Leo DiCaprio was
Matt
in Mary
Damon.
Hill. Matt Damon. We don't know where Matt Damon
There's
was.
Matt Damon in.
Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
Right, he owes me
Yeah.
a tenner.
Is he?
Cheeky bastard.
Yeah.
So no, it's
We
quite
are the
exciting.
centre it is. Although it is, I mean, there are places of madness, aren't there? But the town is actually very quiet
Yes.
because everyone has stayed away.
Full of police, though.
Oh yeah, Hochin.
Well, and that's been our new favourite game this week is Spot Where the Police Are From.
Yeah.
It was Norfolk and, what was it,
Yeah, it was
Norfolk and
Norfolk,
something?
yeah.
West
so that-
Yorkshire. What are the red and white and blue hats all about?
Oh, well, I know this and I can't remember.
I've seen them wearing all different flat caps.
Well, it's-
not flat caps, baseball caps with different colours.
It's because it's different ranks. So
Is
it's your
it?
chief inspector, your sergeant.
What's
your-
red?
I think red is maybe sergeant. I'll get in trouble by my friends who are in the police. But that's a Met police, or don't,
Maybe sergeant. Listen.
that's English
What's
police. That's not Scottish police.
Oh, of course, we've got different police, do we? Different
Yeah.
ranks.
Oh yeah, we do.
Yeah.
No, well we have different uniforms. They don't have coloured hats in Scotland. That's English police that we're called.
Oh.
There you are.
I asked a policeman in Hyde Park when I passed one a few months ago, and he told me, and I can't remember what the different
You're
ranks
probably
were.
drunk.
But that's why. No, I was not.
Anyway.
But that's why. But that is a good game of where the police are from.
So
There's-
it's been an interesting time, but it's also. Did you hear they'd announced that the next climate summit is taking place in Los Angeles in America?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
No, I
it's-
didn't
Yeah,
know that.
apparently it's going to be known as Beverly Hills Cop.
play the music, Stuart.
Welcome to the Good Roundup. Good is a brand consultancy based out in the UK, and we get together and talk about brandy stuff and stuff that interests us and stuff that makes us go funny in our heat. I am joined as ever by Mr. Chris Lumsden.
Good afternoon.
And Ms. Julie Murdoch.
Oh, you said Murdoch.
Well, you know, I'm taking client feedback.
Today's topic is the subject of your most recent rage.
No, not rage.
I don't really think it was rage. I'm not.
No?
No, I don't think.
All right.
Well, it wasn't rage.
What is it, Stuart?
Well,
what are we talking about?
Frustration
Well,
or observation.
It was an observation that kind of led to an article around the structure of creating your brand definition. And by structure, we mean, and this is where it kind of got a bit complicated and why we wrote it. So there's lots of things around brand that we've talked about, like you can have a brand essence and a brand vision, a brand purpose. Don't get me started.
We've even had brand promises.
Brand
in the past.
promises, brand keys,
Oh, don't get me started on the onions.
brand onions.
The internet's best read article is about brand
Yep,
onions,
that's
isn't
very
it?
true. I'll put a link in the. I mean, everybody who's listening to this has probably read it, but I'll put a link in anyway. And there's just a lot of these kind of brand matrix. There's a lot of things brand and something.
Brand prefaces many, many times.
Yeah. And I think it's quite interesting when you're then.
Cake? Brand cake?
There's probably a brand cake. I wouldn't surprise me at all.
There are certainly ingredients of a brand.
Yes, very well. Oh, that's a nice segue. But the interesting thing is when you actually then sits down as a professional consultancy like ourselves to sit down and kind of go, right, we're going to define your brand, because there's all this stuff floating about, it makes it really hard to try and cut through that. And it's kind of, it's always been interesting to me, given how important brand is to businesses, why there isn't like just a set criteria to say, right, the way that we're going to set out your brand is this, this, and this. And instead, it's kind of the first thing you've kind of got to do is set your own terms. You've got to kind of go, right, we are going to work with this structure. And as I kind of pointed out, maybe not in the article, but certainly in my thinking, if you were an accountant, you wouldn't make up your own terms for profit.
I like this analogy. I think it's the best.
But people
way
do
of
make up their own terms for profit.
Well, no, but I mean,
Well,
I know what you mean, though, yeah.
so I mean, nobody's.
you don't have, every law firm that you go to doesn't have different meanings of legal terms. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And so it means that you can transfer that information, which is key to your business, from one place to another. So, I mean, as I say here, nobody has got a different way. You're not saying, well, you're 25K in the fund money in the last orbital. That doesn't mean, you kind of
somebody somewhere might be saying
probably, but it's all standardized for the benefit of transferring key information from one place to another, so everybody understands it. And when it comes to brands, suddenly it's what's almost in vogue, and it's kind of, when you're trying to position yourself as a brand in its entirety as a kind of fundamental part of the way that your business is valued and understood. It always struck me as a bit strange that there's not just set criteria about what things are called and why that is.
And what the purpose of each of those things are.
I think it's interesting. It goes back to a lot of the stuff we did at the beginning when we first started the firm about, the DBA, Design Business Association, the professionalization of design in the corporate world. But I do think it's something where we will never solve in this industry. I mean, you're talking about issues of sort of professional accreditation and regulation and that kind of stuff, which takes eons and light years to actually bed in. And I just think that what we do ends up it's no different really to the arts, in that there's a large degree of sort of subjectivity in there, and art. And
so those things aren't regulated in any way, are they?
No, yeah, but I just think there's a huge degree of subjectivity brought to bear on all of these aspects. So you can't. In the same way as not everyone's going to like a certain piece of writing or in literature or art, it's thrown in that mix, isn't it? And you that's I think what plays to the kind of what makes it so opaque and so challenging, really. But it's also what makes it exciting, right? It's part of the link between the serious kind of understanding and research led and strategic kind of stuff that underpins what eventually is a creative articulation of that insight, right? And that I just think it's a challenge that we'll never unscramble that. We'll never solve that.
Way back in the day when I was studying marketing at university, it was one of the things that always frustrated me about when it came to your tutors marking your homework, and why I just chose to do joint honours with economics, where you can present a theory, you can present an argument, you can back it up with theory. It can be completely wrong, but as long as you have the theory to back up your argument, it doesn't matter. It's not subjective, and from a tutor's point of view. Whereas marketing as a subjective study was so often subjective and opinion-based. I didn't like it at the time.
And I think that I don't think it is exciting. And I think of it going back to the client, whereas if the client is deciding to go through an RFP or a pitch process and she gets 3 brand consultancies coming in with slight variant.
And you're right. It doesn't make it easy.
No, it kind of makes it. Yeah, so you're kind of going, so what we're going to do is, what is your vision? And that's the kind of thing is, well, what is a brand vision? I think part of the problem was that vision and mission sound the same and people get confused with that. And it's all those terminologies.
No, you're right. I agree. But then the buyer beware is, look, find a firm that's got demonstrable, experience and credibility that you've done it before and you've worked with other organizations that are at a level and that because in the same way as anyone can say I'm an actor, but I'm not going to get selected. I'm not going to, I'm not challenging Brad Pitt for the next role in Ocean's 11, am I? You've got to.
Well, you say that.
you've got to have a body of work and point to a body of work to prove your credibility, right?
You do, I think, but you've made the point before that often I think you wrote an article recently about how to buy design services or consultancy, and I think from a client, and clients some clients will have been through the kind of brand definition or whatever evolution process a number of times in their career. Some clients will never have done it.
Not as many as us.
So, and that's kind of the point. So we do it. Yes, we do it all the time, but we talk about the challenge and why these can be challenging projects for clients to manage, because you don't got 101 things that they do in the course of the day, and kind of defining the foundations of your brand isn't something that happens on a daily, weekly or yearly basis. So how do you then, when you're going through the process of trying to appoint a firm to work with you on a brand project, and what you have are completely different approaches and responses at the foundational level, it's not making their decision any easier, is it? Like
no, not at all. And we I don't know, Stuart, if this is your second point. I think there's the absence of sort of common terms, which is one thing. But then we as an industry ourselves do not work to make that easier. In fact, we exacerbate the problem.
Totally.
Right? We invent new terms for things that seem fairly certain because they don't sound cool enough or they're not new enough.
Yeah. Well, you said it's whatever's on vogue.
So the article was to define what we use and put it down as
Yeah.
kind of this is our approach and this is why it's our approach. And when I was writing it, the fear I had when I was writing it down, distilling all the work that we've done over the last 5-10 years, you kind of go, does this feel old fashioned? Because essentially we use a brand pyramid, and I can hear some.
I mean, there's no cryptocurrency in that, Stuart.
Well, I mean, it does.
You know what I
I mean, it is kind of. Well, it's not got a who. It's not all starting with. It's not a who, what, and or why or whatever it is. It's all this kind of thing. We're like, it doesn't. But it does work. And the challenge is, it's not about the. So we work with a vision, mission, values kind of pyramid. And the challenge is, it goes, that sounds like a brand mission, especially in the days of where brand purpose is kind of, which is in the thing I'm writing about just now. It goes up,
I know.
and you try, well, where's the purpose in that? And it gets very difficult because purpose is one thing.
Start with why.
And all that kind of stuff. When actually, the vision, mission, values, when explained, and when you explain it to clients, they kind of go, no, that makes sense. And that is also something that can be shared easily and explained easily across the organization, which is again,
there's too much jargon.
And I think that's what we're not particularly. We don't really embrace jargon. We're not embracing the new just because. But I just feel for clients who sit there and go. I mean, there's agencies that go, our trademark process, and you go, really?
But as human beings, we are drawn to. We have a complexity bias. It's a thing. We're more prone to believe and give credence to theories that seem more complicated than those that are simple, because we believe that they've probably been more robustly, because if we don't understand it, then I think that's what lies at the heart of this. It must be good. And I remember I wrote an article about this, about the brand onion stuff, that when I first started in this space, I thought I wasn't experienced enough to understand all of this. Turns out it's just a lot of bullshit, most of it. And that, the jargon is an example of how complexity bias affects the way we communicate, and I think that's at the heart of this. So your point about, does this feel a bit old-fashioned? Actually, no. If we're simplifying this down into buckets, and we use straightforward, simple language, then that's a win as far as I'm concerned, because this space needs simplification.
Totally. And as you said, Julie, that desire for simplification actually works to our brand and our values. We're not looking across to somebody else to go, what are they doing? And we should steal a bit of that. That's never been our way, because I think it's because we've done it for so long that as soon as you start to go off that path, you suddenly, maybe not in that moment when you're actually creating that brand, the foundations, but 2 months later when you're trying to come up with the first campaign or trying to make sure that something, you can go, well, we're missing that thing.
And you've made the point before that if these things are complex and they're or too long, whether it's a customer journey piece or a brand definition piece, it tends to reside in a drawer, doesn't it? Yeah. So it doesn't get used, and they're not thinking about the usability of it. So it's actually of no use.
The more complicated it is, the less likely it is that it will be useful in the day-to-day operation of the business. The more likely is it's going to live in a drawer. And then what's the point in even having it? If you don't have those kind of foundational things of what do we want to be, what do we stand for, and are we going to get there, that at its simplest level, then what's its value?
And so I think our position on that is absolutely right. The more we can simplify and not terrify people, about this process, then the more useful and valuable it's going to be in the long term. And I think as an industry, and the agency sector is absolutely terrible for it. We do it to ourselves.
Yep.
And I think combined with that, we often find, even when you have, as we do, and we'll talk about it in a second, a simple model, clients often have their own way of doing these things, which are often quite complex and complete. And you then start to having to kind of bend your own way of doing it and kind of lose some of that simplicity in order to be able to fill in the right boxes of a client's brand key, because there's a convention of the way that they do it within their own business. And that can be a challenge as well, I think, particularly when you're working with global businesses who have multiple brands where they want to use the same framework. Do you know what I mean? So you're engaged with one of those brands. So you're not going to be, you can't apply the same.
Yeah. To use a Greta-ism, it's brand blah, 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 right?
Very good. That's a nice tie-in.
It often is.
It's also so for example, the brand key, there's a lot of things in it, and it's actually, while it's quite a complicated thing to look at, and you look at it, I can't navigate it. Why I understand that some clients like it and use it is that you can put a lot of stuff in it. Mm-hmm. And what it means is that you don't need to start sacrificing and then start putting. So with our model, it's hard, because what you're trying to do is really distill the business into its essence, I suppose, the the little diamond that's in the middle, as opposed to going, you know what, we've got all this space and we can fill out 8 parts of the key. We can put in a
because
we can do it, and then everybody's happy. While we've got a simple process, that simplicity is sitting down with the stakeholders and going, but what are you really? You know, and people will start to go, well, we're innovative and we're this and
well, it's
that.
your
And how
point
do you make it
about, we've
ownable?
talked about sacrifice before, haven't we? How important a word that is in everything, really. But in a strategic sense, what are you sacrificing? What is really at the heart?
I was reading an article the other day, in fact, well, in preparation for this pod, and it was talking
You
about
prepare
Lego.
Phil's a pro.
But it was talking about Lego, and they were talking to the CEO who bought the new, or they're not new now, the CEO who came on board in 2004 after were going a little bit tits up. Jurgen, can't remember his surname, but anyway, and it wasn't so much of a mission, vision, values type stuff, but just at its core, what is Lego as a brand? What does Lego as a brand stand for? And it was basically be highly recommended by children, create value for our business partners, and have creative and engaged employees. And he basically said, if we have those 3 things, we can't help but make a profit.
And it's really important for a brand to get the building blocks in place.
Oh my God, I can't believe I set that one up. That serves me right. But he also,
Nice and
in
simple,
the same
though.
article,
Nice and
he was also quoted, exactly, nice and simple. And I think the interesting thing I thought, another thing he was quoted as saying is that the battle is not won in the CEO's office, which I think is probably the most important part of that, because it's not. That's the thing. It's like if it doesn't live, and if it doesn't influence decision making on a day to day basis, then and drive those decisions and drive your behaviours and drive how your engagements, then
it's nothing.
What the fuck is the point in it? And it can live in a drawer because no one's going to miss it.
Inside out bias, we call that.
And we've seen that with brand keys, where they're kind of, again, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Nobody's deciding to make a brand key out of badness. They think it's the right tool for the job, but then suddenly, as soon as I say, 3 months into the grand unveiling, it's getting a wee bit mocked because you don't quite know what part of that 8-point key should be guiding you.
The more complicated and the more stuff in it, the more it invites ridicule. Is my view.
Yeah, and again, it looks impressive and it looks complex, and when you're working within a complicated organisation, you're kind of going, well, this does because this is complicated. And we're complicated. When actually, the hard work and the legwork and a lot of the work that we do is a lot of listening, a lot of difficult questions, to try and get that down as simple as possible. So that's the kind of framework that we like to work with, and we think that works, and we think that has longevity. That's the thing.
It's also just the language we use. There are these sort of semantic barriers that go up that say this is a club that only I understand, and if you don't understand these terms, you can't have the conversation with us.
Yeah,
and I think that's a marketing thing. Marketers do that.
Well, I mean, as you know, my past life was a light designer, and there was certainly that kind of jargon in there where you would shout down for a piece, a bit of, this shows my age, a bit of 106 for a 1-2-3.
Of course,
and then suddenly you go, you go, that guy knows what he's doing because he's asked for a 106 for a 1-2-3.
Which is probably just like, could you give me that
red
a
plastic
bayonet bulb?
Can you get me a red plastic for this wee light? That's basically what it is.
Get us a bulb.
I have dated myself by referring to a 1-2-3.
Okay,
but yeah, so there is, it's that jargon kind of implies cost and complexity and everything else like that, and
which is the agencies. We need to do that. We need to build that up.
Yeah,
justify our fees.
Yes, whereas the complexity is actually getting to the point of simplicity.
Yeah, agreed. Oh, that's good. Let's just finish there,
and we're done. Drop the mic. Right. So that's that. So. Is it worth just quickly running through?
I think so.
I think
without
so.
going into too much detail.
No, I'm not going to go into.
Where do you start?
You start at the top, and you start with your vision. And your vision is basically, what is your company here to do? And it should be a bit of a stretch. It shouldn't be something that you'll be able to achieve. I think some charities will be, their vision is to stamp out poverty. Now,
they're good charities, lend themselves to great visions.
So and it's trying to find something that fits for you. So I mean that is something that is impossible to do, but every day you're doing that.
But when you make plastic grommets for part of an industrial manufacturing process, it's a different thing, isn't it?
Yeah, but you can still find a vision.
Can still find it. Yeah, you just have to work harder. Yeah,
it's the old, and it's the old NASA chat, isn't it? Everybody, the guy with the porter working to put a man on the moon. Well, he's not. He's sweeping up people's shit.
That's the thing about a vision. It doesn't need to be the man in the moon.
But there was a part at some point, and this is I actually have this conversation quite a lot with my husband, bizarrely, who has nothing to do with branding. He works for a bank. But when you're driving behind these vans where it's like,
yes, I know what you mean,
Jim's Drainage Solutions, and you're like, somebody somewhere at some point went, I'm going to set up that business. And they must have had some sort of purpose in mind. Do you know what I mean? Or, I don't mean brand purpose. I mean, but the role purpose of that organisation existing.
That is the purpose.
Yeah.
That is the purpose.
point of that organisation is Jim's going to come and he's going to clear your drains.
He's going to make sure there's no floods.
Exactly. So whatever whether it's making your little widgy gadgets for the bits that go on your shoelaces or
they
whatever.
perform a role to which you can scale up to a vision.
Yeah. You founded it for some reason in the first place.
Yeah, and that's why in the article I use a plumber as an example. So the
you do, and I didn't actually make that connection.
Yeah,
That's
so the plumber vision that we came up with was like no plumbing problem should ever become an emergency. Now that can be unlikely, but that should be the aspiration that whenever they're involved, they're going to make sure that it's not going to be an emergency.
Because some plumbing problem somewhere is always going to become an emergency.
Yes.
But as a vision for the organisation, that's what they're striving for. And hence your point about that likelihood is that will never be achieved, but it's an aspiration.
Yes, that's what you're always pushing for. So that's the vision.
So that sits at the top.
That sits
at the top. And in a visual metaphor, that's at the top of a pyramid,
yes.
Right? Which is the focus.
Yes,
point,
that's at the top. Now, the next question, which I know that you'll be asking yourself, is how do we achieve that vision?
How do we achieve that vision,
well, that's where your mission...
Is that written anywhere?
That's where your mission comes in.
So the second part is mission. And I have a problem with the word mission, but anyway.
What is your problem with the word mission?
It sounds like vision.
There's not much I can do.
No, I know. I get confused with them. And people
do.
Around.
People do.
So there's a kind of semantic thing about them.
Yes, and even when I've been writing things, I suddenly find myself swapping them.
Yeah,
because
I know, and part of me wants to simplify it more to go, what we do versus where we want to be.
And I think that there's definitely scope for kind of doing that. And I think in a couple of jobs we have done that.
I think it's a useful thing to do.
But from a framework point of view,
I don't disagree with that. I would just like that on record.
And I want that.
Agreed.
Like party music, play the music because that's the first time.
No, but I think your point about just as a definition when we're talking through these things, I don't think it does any harm just as a bit of a descriptor to say this is what your vision is about, this is what your mission is. I don't think it makes any difference. I don't think it matters that they sound kind of the same. You could call it a purpose and someone would still use a different definition.
Yeah. But basically the mission is how you're going to achieve that vision. So it kind of is an extension of if the vision is the top goal of what your company does every day, it's kind of, how are we going to do that? And
how did a good plumbing company
So it's
do
a description of what you do every day.
Yeah. So for example, the good plumbing company would be every job we do is the chance to make a bad situation better for customers so they can get back to their lives as quickly as possible. And it's not grandiose. A mission is, I think the challenge with mission is that there's the moon mission and there's always that kind of highfalutin, super aspirational thing. But a mission can be pretty down to earth as long as it ties back to what you're doing. But every day you're trying, it's every job we do is a chance to make a bad situation better for our customers.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with just using very ordinary language to describe that.
Yeah.
Rather than, full of, adjectives and superlatives. Because that's where it goes wrong.
Yeah,
right?
you don't have to. I mean, essentially, you want to make sure that you can say that. I mean, that's the good thing. And the nice thing about our values is that you can very quickly just say, well, is it simple enough? Because that's part of values. And you can work that into a conversation when you have a problem or when you're trying to
the
get
transparency and honesty part of it. Just being honest. Yeah.
You do that. So the mission is then kind of putting that there, and it's just how you approach your vision. So that's the mission statement, and that guides how you're going to be doing it.
And it can be quite straightforward.
Yeah.
There's no need to make it more, as you said, highfalutin than it needs to be.
Yeah. And it does guide you. It kind of guide, for that kind of guide how you approach each job. How do you answer the phone? The mission can actually help a number of ways of going, well, does this kind of tie in? What tools do we use? All these kind of things. It can really help just kind of, it's definitely more day to day on what you're doing. And lastly, my favourite, because as I say in the article, I fucking love values. I think values are if vision's the thing that you're looking at year on year, and mission is the thing you're doing month on month. Values are what you're using day by day.
Well, that's good.
Because that's what is guiding you, how you behave, how you act.
So one of the things that we talk about often, Stuart, is that a lot of these values that you pick up any website and you look at it and it says, we live by integrity, professionalism, innovation or whatever.
innovation.
So what makes a good? What a good value? Talk about that.
Well, Dan, we have, I shall link to the podcast we've done about values because I fucking love them and we like to talk about them a lot because they really are. I think making sure they're ownable because everybody, first of all, what company isn't going to say that they're innovative, although I would argue that's not a value, but, you know, which one isn't kind of, you know, we are, what was the ones you mentioned? What were,
Professional.
Yeah, we're professional.
Integrity.
Yeah, integrity. Yeah,
Integrity is always a favourite.
yeah,
isn't
it's
it?
kind of, well, of course you
It's
are.
a filler.
Yeah, it is a filler, and it's kind of go. That doesn't differentiate you
Empty
from.
calories.
Yeah.
Name me a plumbing company that's going to go dodgy. We're going to be dodgy.
Although I think that's important to talk here a little bit about the uniqueness thing, which we've talked about in
Yes.
the past before. And we had this debate, I think, in an earlier podcast about our own values and whether they were differentiated and distinct enough, being simplicity, honesty, and love. And we don't need to talk about that for now. But I think...
But they are.
Well, they are. Well, I think in the point, you know, like we've said, and we've had to challenge clients before, you spend a lot of time trying to find one word or one thing that makes you unique or differentiates you. In reality, it's a combination of things that come together that individually might not be that unique or that distinct, but are, like you say, are they ownable and are they different enough for anyone to care about when they come together to create the foundations of your brand?
Yep. Darren, our creative director, does a great technique of that, which is using 2 words rather than one. But we always try and use supporting copy. Because it is sometimes
Gives it a
values.
bit of context and meaning.
Values can be really hard to sum up in 2 words. Because when you say integrity, well, what do you mean? How is that integrity?
Describe what it means to you.
Yeah, and how does it help with the mission?
Which is what we do with our values.
Yeah. So when we're kind of tying that in together, it's there. So values to me are the thing that you're using every day to guide yourself. When you're coming up with a decision or a choice to make, you're mentally running through how do our values guide us, because that helps us run the mission, which helps us achieve our vision.
As a kind of polar opposite to there was the Wells Fargo example, and they talk about what's right for our customers and everything we do is one of their kind of principles. And then they came top of a report who for thousands of their employees had set up basically fraudulent bank accounts so that they could get their commission and earn bigger bonuses, basically. And it's like, that's probably, that somewhat flies in the face of, you know, being right for your customers and everything. Which is why you do. So not driving the everyday behaviours of employees.
Which is why we were talking about that earlier, Stuart, about how it's most important that it lives internally first. One of our clients, you were on a call this week, and I think whether it was them or you, were just underscoring the fact that let's not worry about the customers at the moment. Let's make sure we're feeling it internally. Let's make sure that we live that. Because when you get it right there, it's going to radiate out anyway.
Yeah. It's really important. It's not I think the interesting one of that has been the Aberdeen Standard rebrand to Aberdeen, where I think Aberdeen.
Just take out the vowels.
Yeah, which I think is it was a renaming and a bit of a rebrand. And I think the interesting thing about that was like it was positioned to be kind of being a very technical. You know, we're a forward-thinking, innovative company. My understanding is that the people that worked for this company didn't know it was happening. And there's all this grandstanding about we're going to be a technologically led company, but they're all sitting there with HP laptops that can't connect to a server.
Yeah, good.
And I think that's where on day
very
one,
forward thinking.
Yeah,
doesn't work.
You're now, I think you can go on a journey. I think you can say, look, this is an aspiration for the brand, and this is what we're going to be doing. But I think you've the people you've got to persuade first aren't your investors, aren't your customers, but it's the people internally. Because do you believe this?
Are they seeing the behaviours?
Yeah.
Comes down to actions. You can talk as much as you want, but it does come down to actions.
Yeah.
Another thing about values, I think, that we use frequently, or they provide a basis or a foothold into content as well, don't they? So they're quite tangible markers around, you know, that very abstract. I mean, we've written and talked about content, but they give good guidance in that space.
Yeah, because any content you've got to have has got to be, and we do it. I mean, when we are writing our content, we're going, well, we know it's going to be honest because we're not going to make shit up, but it's also kind of going, well, is this simple enough? Are we explaining this enough? And,
is it simple enough to be useful and helpful?
Yeah, and you know, and we hope there's a little sprinkling of love.
And we do that because this whole article is, and we've got a series of these carousels that were created for social, which boils basically the essence of your article down into like 4 slides and links to content on the blog. So we are
Yes.
executing and living
that's
it.
that's
Walking
exactly
the walk
whacking
and
the walk.
Yeah.
talking.
So,
No.
so I think it's one
Good.
of these. I agree with you. I don't think it's ever going to be solved, but it doesn't stop my annoyance on it. And the
But I just think
article.
that's a bigger opportunity for us.
Yeah.
If we were all working off the same hymn sheet, then
Oh, yeah, I just think it's also a big opportunity for potential clients who are kind of. There's a lot of skepticism around branding.
yeah,
And I think,
rightly.
Yeah, and I think it's these kind of things when you can't define your own solid terms one after another. That's where the kind of skepticism comes up.
Well,
And-
especially now throw in stuff like sustainability in there as
Yeah.
well. We talked about innovation.
Yeah.
These words that are kind of generic and meaningless at the same time. It makes it harder for organizations because they're looking to fold these things in, but they don't know how to.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
You know?
And I think the approach that we take is simple. It's hard, but ultimately, the work that you do at the beginning, all that hard work pays off years down the line. It's that
yeah.
kind of long-term outcomes that we're kind of trying to.
I think
get
you're
to.
right. And I think that's one of the reasons why you do employ a consultancy like us, which is it's not just having fun in the moment, coming up with these things, because that is what it is. And you can have some fun and you can come up with stuff, but are you coming up with the right stuff? And
Yeah.
when you work with a firm like us, what we know is we know what that's going to mean 5 steps down the line,
Yeah.
not just one.
Yeah.
And we know at that point whether the values that we're talking about using, whether they're going to be any good or not.
Yeah.
And that saves a lot of red faces as well when you have to recut it in 6 months' time because it didn't work.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know?
As Jeff Bezos says, build your strategy on things that won't change, not look at the
Yes,
things that will.
absolutely. I think that's as good a way to finish it, isn't it?
Right. Beautiful. That was
Right.
good. Enjoyed that. Thank you all.
Nice one.
Bye.
How to do brand definition. Love it.